Can't even stand still. Hello there. Now, at the moment, as much of the world is on lockdown, landscape photography is not particularly something we can do. Now, yes, obviously we love it, but there are times when it's hard, particularly when you're getting up at crazy o'clock in the morning to get somewhere for a sunrise, or particularly for me, one of the things I dislike about doing landscape photography the most is doing it in the wind. It just disrupts so much. There's a certain amount of wind you can cope with, but then after that, it just becomes crazy. Now, this video is going to be a bit of a mixed bag, but I do have some content that I filmed 2 or 3 weeks ago before all this lockdown began. I wanted to share a little bit of that with you because I went to Snowdonia to meet up with a fantastic photographer and really interesting guy called Ben Brain. He used to be the editor of Digital Camera magazine, which I'm sure at some point all of you have read, and I went to Snowdonia to meet up with him. It was, however, horrifically windy, which you're about to see, but we did also sit down and have a bit of a chat. I'll play some of the stuff that we did out and about in a small portion of the conversation maybe. We're then going to come back into the office, and I just want to share a few things that I'm going to be doing to try and keep in touch with landscape photography. Hopefully a few of the ideas will sort of spark some inspiration in you as well, and we can all look forward to this time trapped indoors coming to an end, which it undoubtedly will at some point, and then we can all be free to go off and explore the incredible landscapes that this world has to offer. Hello there, and welcome to another day of landscape photography in Snowdonia. I'm looking forward to today because I have someone with me who I've been very excited for a while now for him to come on this channel, and that is Ben Brain. He is a very accomplished photographer. He was the editor of Digital Photo for a long time, very accomplished photographer, judges on a number of high-profile competitions. Even stand still. Here he is. I think we're gonna struggle with this weather today.
Yeah, we're gonna struggle.
More recently, I've been again talking about kind of, it sounds cliche, but the art of photography essentially, which I think you're very interested in, aren't you? But then all of a sudden we start talking about gear. It always seems to be the first conversation, doesn't it? Because I guess it's a bit like an icebreaker in a way, isn't it? Sometimes, like.
Well, I think gear's really important, choosing the right tools and so forth. But I was reading in on Being a Photographer by David Hearn and Bill Jay, which is a really good book. And they talk about photographers talking about equipment and how initially photographers are very interested in kit. Then there's a point when they're actually a bit snobby about not talking about kit because it's, the art is more important. Yeah. And then there's a sort of third stage where actually photographers end up talking about kit again because actually sort of talking about tools and stuff is actually quite interesting in making sure that you have the right tools for the right job. I mean, ultimately, it's of course the art and the content that's more important, I think.
You were the editor of Digital Photo?
Digital Camera.
Right? Digital Camera magazine. Yeah. How long did you do that for?
So I was in publishing for about 14 years, 13 odd years. I worked for Amateur Photographer initially as a writer, then Photo Plus, Digital Camera as a technique writer. I had a brief stint launching Practical Photoshop where I faffed around with messing around with images, and then back to Digital Camera as an editor. Okay. So yeah, all told, quite a long time.
Yeah. What made you want to leave or make the leap into?
Well, I mean, print magazines are not necessarily in the best place. All the graphs are going in the wrong direction. Just felt it was time to sort of move on, and if I was going to move on, then I needed to sort of do it at that stage in my career. So I was very grateful for everything that I learned there. But also some of the concerns of the magazine. I am more interested in the sort of art of photography and some of the more conceptual stuff, probably going back to my sort of art schooly days. And I realised actually that I wasn't able to explore that sort of more deeply in the magazine world, understandably, because there's commercial considerations to take into account, and as a custodian, an editor of a big commercially successful magazine, there are certain responsibilities that go with that, and commercial responsibilities, and they didn't necessarily align with where I wanted to go creatively. I do still write a column for Digital Camera called The Art of Seeing.
Okay.
So very
The Art of what, sorry?
The Art of Seeing.
Yeah.
So very on trend with our conversation today. But one of the things I have talked about there, I think I heard the photographer Paul Hill talk about camera vision, and it's just sort of seeing. It's seeing like a camera.
Okay.
In fact, I wrote about this relatively recently. It was more in the context of I was using flash outside in the landscape in a way that when you wouldn't normally expect to use it. But it was actually raining. It was a day not dissimilar to this. Yeah. But I love the way that the rain is picked up by the on-camera flash, and so it lights it. It freezes the action because obviously it's very fast. Even if you've got a slow shutter speed, the flash of light is very fast. Yeah. So you get these nice. It's like sort of almost like a sort of bokeh effect with these random droplets of light, of rain being illuminated by the flash.
Still with the scene in the background?
Still with the scene in the background. But what I really like about that is that you're rendering that scene in a way that only the camera with a flash gun could see it. You can capture it that way. Yeah, with the really and it's the same with long exposure, and it's I kind of like this idea of camera vision. And I think once you've been around cameras for a while and f-stops and shutter speeds and flashes and stuff, you can understand how it's going to look or how you want to make it look. You have the controls sort of at your fingertips to realise that.
Some of what I observe of your work, you're using like quite a lot of linear lines and shapes and stuff.
Yeah, shape and colour and line. I mean, superficially, they're just sort of, arguably shallow aesthetic considerations, but I enjoy those visual harmonies, and they can work. I mean, I think it's sometimes a seduction process. If you want to communicate an idea, possibly get a viewer to question the human relationship with the environment, which is maybe what I might think of as being an objective that I might have. Achieving that is almost a visually seductive process. Yeah. I mean, I think I remember reading that the average person in an art gallery looks at a picture for something like 2 seconds. If you've got a relatively complex ideas you want to communicate, and you've got to do that in 2 seconds, really what you've got to do is get someone to look at it for 10 seconds. Yeah. And really the way to do that, I think, if photography is your chosen medium, is to create a sort of visual hook, as it were, and that's where aesthetics and lines, and this is a long way of getting around to answering your question, but my interest in lines and geometry and composition and colour and tones and textures and so forth can work as a visual seduction. And once you've got someone sort of maybe looking at a picture, then they might engage with it a little bit further, and you might be able to communicate, if you're lucky, one of your ideas. Yeah. But that's also where a series can help. If you're looking to use an exhibition as an example, that's where a series can help. One image can reinforce the next, and so forth, and the whole body then becomes a sort of piece in its own right. Yeah. All books.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Absolutely, it's simply impossible to film. It hurts my face. It's just impossible to do anything in these conditions. The annoying thing is the light is great for photography, but the wind and the rain, making it impossible. I'm sure you can't hear anything I'm saying. Right, I did say it was going to be a bit of a mixed bag today, so let's just get into a few ways we can maybe continue to stay in touch with landscape photography, because it's what we love to do, isn't it? So I want to keep in touch, and I've got 5 good ways that you can still do that. Now, number 1, and I've seen loads of people doing this anyway, is to really work on your editing skills and your post-processing. Now, I have loads of videos up for going through post-processing and stuff as well. I'll link a few of them down below, but one thing I am particularly going to be working on over this period is just completely changing my editing workflow. Now, I've just picked up the new iPad, which I'm going to be making a video about this soon, very soon, but particularly using the pencil here, where I can take the iPad in Lightroom on the iPad and just do my editing with the pencil. Very different way of doing things, a little bit similar to using like a Wacom tablet, but actually drawing or painting on the actual image itself is going to be really different. The screen is much bigger on this iPad as well, so I'm going to attempt to move all of my photo editing over onto this iPad because I want to be as mobile as possible. I made a video a little while ago where I took pictures on a phone and then did the editing on my current iPad in the field. And it was so freeing. And I want to use this time to kind of develop my workflow a little bit to become more mobile. So maybe I can do my editing in the field, spend more time outdoors rather than sat here in front of the computer editing. I'm not always going to do that, but I'm going to give it a go. That might include some video editing as well. Right, so something to think about. You might have an iPad already or a tablet of some form. Try using Lightroom on the iPad or your tablet. It could be incredible. Yes, number 2, and I made a video about this a little while ago, is to create a symbolic triptych, a set of like 3 images. And I've got this one here, which I made on a video quite a while ago now. Can you see that? So this is all shot indoors, but it represents the type of landscape photography I was doing in 2018, I think. Top one is woodland photography. Then I did a lot of seascapes and was at the beach a lot. And then the last one is to signify a mountain. It's kind of it's pebbles in the picture, but it is to represent a cairn in the mountains, because I often go to the mountains, as you know. So to create something like this that's just a bit symbolic and represents you and your landscape photography, this was a really nice process to go through making this. Just gives you that sort of creative idea to work on something different, and also gives you the planning and the encouragement to go on once this is all over. But it's really quite straightforward. You can do it with maybe one flash or on-camera flash, even if you've got a pop-up flash. But it's quite a fun little project to do at this moment in time. So just creating something symbolic like that. Yes, now, number 3, I think it's a perfect time to go through your backlog of photographs that you've got, even edit some new ones that you haven't done yet, and then enter a competition. Now, it's going to fill some time at the moment, and then you've got the potential of being to win and get a bit more coverage for your work. And at the moment, my friend Charlie Waite obviously runs Landscape Photographer of the Year, and they've extended now their entry period due to the issues that are going on. So, and then pushed back the actual judging and the announcing the winner and things in the exhibition that follows that. So you still now have a good opportunity to enter Landscape Photographer of the Year, and it's a £10,000 prize at the end of it, and you get loads of coverage, and the winners of that competition, it's completely changed their lives on a number of occasions now. It's a great competition. Charlie's obviously a good guy. This is not sponsored by them at all. It's just something I wanted to let you know about because I think it's a great competition to get involved with. And like I say, you get £10,000 if you win. There's lots of other awards as well. You can be entered into the book that they always produce, and your work will be seen by many. It's just a good process to go through. Again, I've talked about that a few times before when I won something. Next one. This is what I'm going to be spending a huge amount of time doing, I think, over the next few weeks, is to plan a trip. Time is still a bit of a difficulty at the moment as I'm homeschooling my children, but I was speaking to a subscriber in Italy yesterday, and he lives in the Bergamo area. Now, he showed me some of his work that he'd produced around there, and that is an amazing location right on the doorstep of the Alps, and it's definitely going to be a place that I plan a trip to as soon as humanly possible, and hopefully hook up with him and he can show me around a little bit. But one thing I use, or one app that I think is very useful, is the Ordnance Survey App. Great app, great maps. You can plan routes, you can plan walks, you can do like a little on-screen kind of 3D model on your desk. It's very cool. So I definitely recommend that you check out the OS app. But the next one is to, and I've talked about this all the time, is to print your work. But this time, I guess we are maybe going to specifically be talking about printing at home. Printing is such a good way to, it's an essential part of that photography process, really. Going from that sort of visualization at the beginning and the ideas in your head, having that artistic idea, and then eventually creating the final print. It's that last part of the photography process, and when you do it, it is a hugely rewarding experience, particularly if you use good photo paper and on matte paper, particularly when you get it in your hands, it just feels so nice. It definitely then becomes a piece of artwork, something more tangible and real. And I think when people see printed photography, the message that you had in your mind is much more easily communicated and is much more impressive when it's down in print. Now, you could pick up a printer like this at the moment. This is about £400, this printer. It's not particularly cheap, but compared to lenses and things like that, I guess it's not too bad. You do then need to buy the inks every now and again. It's not particularly the most sensible financial option, but it does provide you with that ability to print at home. Or you could just use any printer that you've got, an A4 printer. You don't have to print big all the time. Just using like a small 4x6 print and buying some like proper photo paper, which is less than a tenner, I think, for a 4x6, then you can produce some just really nice little snapshots and things on proper photo paper. I think most printers these days will print in that way on photo paper as well. So I definitely recommend that you give it a go. Just get started. I'll link you to a print video I've done there before to give you a little bit of inspiration around that. But I'm going to be doing all those things over the next few weeks, as well as trying to ignore what's going on and just have a little bit of fun with photography in the house. Here's a picture I took of my daughter, which was a little practice shot for a video that we've got coming up hopefully in the next week or two. You can also get a 7-day free trial of the Raw Room as well. There's loads of content on there for you, including the Water Drop Photography Masterclass, which you can do with just get started with a few basic items around the house. Gives you something to do, so go and check that out with a 7-day free trial. I hope to see you over there. And it also includes a one-to-one session with me on Skype. So if you fancy having a chat, quick subscription to the Raw Room and we can get that set up in this period where speaking to anybody is very much beneficial to us all. Anyway, I'll see you on another one very, very soon. I'm Adam. This is First Man Photography, out.